1902, my grandfather fled the Cossacks in Russia and emigrated to America. During the Depression, he started a dressmaking business, pushing a cart down the streets of New York's Lower East Side. Soon he had factories employing members of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. For those older people here, you might remember that jingle, "Wear the Union label." He had achieved the American dream. Later, when the garment industry moved south, my father, who was then running the business, employed several hundred workers in factories in West Virginia and South Carolina. But after NAFTA, Walmart, his biggest customer by that time, was telling him how much he had to price his goods, even how much profit margin he could make. That's what they do with all their suppliers. In order to stay in business, my father had to close his plants and contract with maquiladoras in Mexico. But that wage got too expensive after China entered the WTO in 2001. My sister was running the business by that time, but as a single mother, she could not supervise factories all the way in China and had to liquidate a third-generation family business. Bill Clinton and every president since has promised that these trade agreements would help small businesses and increase jobs. However, my father's factories were just a few of the 57,000 factories that have been shuttered since NAFTA. His workers were just a few hundred of the 5 million workers who have lost their jobs since NAFTA. When these workers lose their jobs, only 1/3 will find jobs of similar quality. 1/3 will end up working in minimum wage service jobs, and 1/3 will never work again. President Obama is saying that the TPP will increase jobs and exports, but he is not telling the truth. Millions more high-paying jobs will be lost, and studies have shown that wages will go down for 90% of American workers. Tomorrow, Obama is scheduled to visit Nike headquarters to promote the TPP. Nike earned $27.8 billion in revenue last year. Their CEO, Phil Knight, is worth $23 billion. Money he made from making high-priced shoes in sweatshops outside the USA. His 1962 Stanford Business School thesis was on the profitability of offshore low-wage production of goods to be sold in the U.S. When he founded Nike, only 4% of footwear was imported. Now the figure is 98%. Nike employs, mostly through contractors, more than 1 million workers, paying workers in Vietnam, for example, the equivalent of $74 a month. Fewer than 1% of Nike's employees are in America. All Nike shoes are produced outside of the U.S. In contrast, Nike competitor New Balance makes 25% of its shoes in 5 factories in the United States. Their executives say that if the TPP passes, lower tariffs on shoes made in countries like Vietnam will force them to close these U.S. factories. The only true thing Obama is saying when he talks about the TPP is that 90% of the U.S. companies' customers are outside the U.S. So American companies really don't have to care about American consumers or workers anymore. All they care about is profits. Of the 29 chapters in the TPP, only 5 of them are about trade. The rest just lock in goodies for various industries. Hollywood will get to extend copyright terms, stifling innovation. Big Pharma will get to extend patents on brand-name drugs, denying people access to low-cost generic drugs that in many cases may be life-saving. Wall Street will get bans on the regulations of derivatives, the financial product that blew up the U.S. economy in 2008. If we really care about American workers, we should scrap this NAFTA on steroids and adopt Bernie Sanders' plan to rebuild our aging infrastructure, which will create about 3 million high-paying jobs. So I say to Hillary Clinton, if you really care about American small business owners, workers, and consumers, you will join your challenger for the Democratic nomination, Bernie Sanders, and oppose the TPP and Fast Track. Thank you.